They once worked together a long time ago. They're not friends now. They don't like each other. And yeah, 50 has taken every shot, especially.
Can you explain why he's speaking out now?
He said he's speaking out because he believes Diddy's a predator. He wants accountability, and he doesn't want someone like this to run unchecked.
They used to work together years ago. Now there's nothing left between them but pure hostility. No friendship, no respect. Just a long-running rivalry that's turned deeply personal. And 50 Cent isn't taking shots for fun anymore. This time, he's aiming where it actually hurts. When people asked why he's going so hard right now, 50's answer was simple. He believes Diddy has been allowed to move unchecked for far too long, and that the moment for accountability has finally arrived. Then the story took a turn nobody expected. The footage at the center of this controversy was never meant to see the light of day. People close to the situation say it was considered too explosive, too risky, too dangerous, to ever be released. But somewhere between a betrayal inside Diddy's own circle and 50's patience finally running out. The recording that was supposed to stay buried ended up online, and when it hit, it didn't trend. It detonated. Not Diddy, not his lawyers. Not even the public relations machine could contain it. December 1st, 2025 marked the moment everything changed. The man once called the most powerful figure in hip-hop was no longer running the game. He was watching the narrative flip against him from a prison television dot, and that's the part people can't stop circling. Diddy didn't just lose a headline, he lost the one thing he could never afford to lose: control of the story.
Out in front of this and tried to persuade Netflix not to come forward with it. I think it's an interesting argument because what they're claiming is, Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, has had a long-standing, animosity against Diddy and sort of vice versa. And because he's at the helm, they're arguing this can't be taken seriously. This should sort of be seen as propaganda. And one of the things that Netflix hit back with was, yes, he's the executive producer. He doesn't necessarily have creative control, and that's something we.
That's why the Netflix release is being framed as more than just a documentary. It plays like a public takedown, and the person holding the spotlight isn't a prosecutor. It's his oldest rival before the premiere. Diddy's legal team reportedly tried to stop the project, arguing that it was essentially executive-produced propaganda with 50 Cent's fingerprints all over it. Netflix pushed back, saying 50 did not have creative control over the final cut. Then, the night before the premiere, Diddy's side allegedly escalated with a cease and desist, claiming the entire project was built on stolen footage and private recordings never meant for the public. Those recordings are what changed the temperature, according to the way the documentaries presents it. The footage captures Diddy in the days leading up to his September 2024 arrest ranting, panicking and demanding loyalty from people who are already pulling away. The irony is brutal. The cameras meant to protect his image may have captured the moments that damaged it the most. Viewers see him pacing inside a hotel suite, snapping at people around him, barking at lawyers, speaking like someone trying to put out fires before they explode. The tone isn't calm, it's pressure. I panicked. It's the sound of someone realizing the walls are closing in. And then the brand starts to feel different. Bad Boy stops sounding like marketing and starts sounding like a warning. Once the clip spread, people locked on to a moment that seemed small but said everything. Diddy and Harlem smile for fans, then recoil, asking for hand sanitizer as if the crowd is beneath them. Polished charm in public. Visible disgust the moment the angle shifts at contrast is what made people say this wasn't a misunderstanding.
Put his hands on females, put his hands on producers, executives. That's just his. I guess that's what the whole name Bad Boy comes from. That people don't really understand. What is it? What is a bad boy? Why did he choose that name? He never really gave a clear definition of how he feels about it.
This is who he is when the mask slips behind the scenes. The legal response was immediate. Reports say his lawyers leaned on attorney-client privilege, arguing that private strategy conversations had been exposed illegally. But by the time that arguments surfaced, the damage was already done. The clips were out, the conversation had moved on, and there was no spin strong enough to put the footage back in the bottle. Netflix pushed back, saying the footage was obtained legally, the rights were properly secured, and the source would remain protected. Director Alexandria Stapleton leaned into an even sharper point, suggesting Diddy spent decades filming himself building an archive without realizing he was documenting his own downfall. He wanted the world to see behind the scenes. Now the world is behind the scenes without his permission. When Netflix reached out for comment, Diddy's camp reportedly stayed quiet until the premiere dropped. Then the tone changed fast. Suddenly, the lawyers were loud, aggressive, and urgent. But by then, the narrative had already shifted. Not from, is he guilty? 2, is he finished? Not from, is this real? 2, how much has been hidden for years? Even some people who once defended him started saying it didn't feel like brand new information. It felt like missing pieces finally clicking into place.
The news that I have about the documentary, it was just old news, and they took a couple of with the footage from Puff from the days that's leading up him to get arrested, the incidents with the people from the courts, the 2 people from the courts. So it was nothing new.
And the twist didn't come only from what was on the tape, it came from how it got out. Michael Oberle, the man Diddy hired to document his life for more than 2 years, is presented as a key figure in how the archive even existed. The plan, as described, was to build a comeback film, something meant to show resilience and control. But in December 2024, Oberle made a claim that changed the entire angle. He said he didn't leak anything. Instead, he claimed someone inside Diddy's inner circle covered for him for 3 days while he was out of state. And during that short window, the footage was taken. 3 days. That's all it took. Just enough time for someone to see an opening, whether driven by money. Revenge or KSN, hand the most damaging material straight into the hands of 50's camp. Oberle's side called it a betrayal of trust. Online, people called it karma. Then came what the documentary frames as the final piece to clip that allegedly silenced the last doubts. In that moment, the documentaries claims Diddy is seen or heard pressuring someone close to him after showing them an explicit party video, using the threat of exposure as leverage. The line presented isn't flirtation. It lands as control through fear. That's why the public conversation narrowed to a single word: coercion. The series pushes the idea that if courts accept accounts like Cassie's, moments like this wouldn't be isolated mistakes. They would be evidence of a pattern. But the docuseries doesn't stop with one clip. It widens the frame to the world that surrounded him for years. It revisits the legendary white Parisian Vitoni nights that looked glamorous from the outside, with A-list names moving through the scene like it was the Oscars of excess. Then it contrasts that shine with what neighbors and locals allegedly experienced. Complaints, police calls, and reports of guests wandering outside at dawn, dazed and disoriented. From there, the documentary connects the party culture to a growing stack of lawsuits. It references allegations from different years, including claims involving a minor in the late 1990s, a security guard who said he was drugged and assaulted in the mid-2000s, and a former adult performer who said she was groomed through multiple events. The series keeps pressing one point. This isn't random, it's systemic.
Look at how many people he affected negatively. That was his trade-off to gain what he had. His former bodyguard, Gene Deal, said he's seen him doing a ritual where they dub. What is that? And I feel like it's being overlooked because they see him doing the dance moves with the baggy clothes. Some of the ladies in his videos were trans.
The series then cuts back to what it presents as Diddy's own words just before his arrest. According to the documentary, he's caught on camera speaking to his lawyers, saying they're losing when someone tries to calm him down. He snaps back. There's no confidence, no control. It plays less like a man managing a crisis and more like someone realizing, in real time, that the storm is bigger than him. As reactions pour in, the divide gets louder. Ja Rule calls out 50 Cent, accusing him of being a dry snitch. Marlon Wayans warns about karma, only to get dragged after 50 posts, old footage linking him to the party scene. Joe Budden takes a sharper angle, arguing that the documentary isn't just about Diddy, it's about the system that protected. Labels, lawyers, executives, artists, people who benefited while the money never stopped flowing. And that's where the conversation turns dangerous, because it stops being about one man and starts being about an entire machine. Empires built on silence only survive as long as everyone inside stays quiet. And right now, that silence is breaking. The dam isn't just cracking, it's collapsing. Whispers turn into testimonies. Rumors turn into lawsuits. People who stayed quiet for years suddenly start talking. Voices shaking, but still speaking. This doesn't look like a single downfall. It looks like a system being exposed. And systems don't run on emotion. They run on money. That's what pulls Kim Porter's 2080 passing back into the conversation. Officially, her death was ruled natural causes by Los Angeles County. But the internet never stopped whispering. The documentary leans into that tension, suggesting that what she knew and what she may have had access to could explain why her name resurfaces every time this story explodes again. At the same time, legal pressure keeps stacking. Lawsuits multiply. Former employees, producers, and people from the inner circle now clash over what they say happened and what they believe they're owed. What used to be handled quietly through NDAs and private settlements is now open. Legal warfare. In the public eye, this isn't just justice, it's being framed as payback. Because when an empire starts to crumble, everyone who stayed quiet suddenly remembers what they saw. Everyone who plays along wants distance. Everyone who feels used wants their version of the truth on record. Look, at the timing, the documentary drops, and voices that were silent for years suddenly start speaking. That doesn't feel random. That feels like survival.
Collect everybody's phone. So now it's just your word against a billionaire. You're gonna lose. Read this right now.
People begin rewriting their roles, flipping loyalties, trying to land on the right side of history before the door slams shut. But what really has people shaken isn't only what's been shown, it's what hasn't. Because if the footage, already released, is this damaging, imagine what's still buried. The documentary hints that Diddy has been filming obsessively since he was 19. Every party, every meeting, every private moment, an archive. And if even part of that is true, then the most frightening question isn't whether tapes exist.
Where Diddy said to her, showed her the video file that he showed her a video of a freak-off that she participated in and said, if you don't participate in another freak-off when we get to New York, I'm gonna put this video out. I'm gonna send it to your mother. And that's coercion. She testified to that. If the jury believed her, yeah, that's coercion. They would have cast.
It's who else is on them. Artists, executives, friends, people who laughed at the jokes, played along, and looked the other way. That's why the pressure feels different now. Because a tape isn't just a scandal. A tape is leverage.
Book Porter allegedly recounts discovering and making copies of the tapes that Diddy made of himself having with young boys that he was managing, including an alleged tape involving an 18-year-old pop star.
So the question becomes, how far will people go to keep those recordings hidden? How much money will be thrown at silence? And what happens when someone decides the price of silence is no longer worth it? Because power only lasts as long as people are willing to enforce it. Right now, Diddy's inner circle isn't just cracking, it's turning on itself. Roger Bonds, described as a former head of security, breaks down in tears and suggests it wasn't just Sean. He frames it as something bigger, a network where responsibility is shared. And when someone who is paid to protect you starts talking like that, you'll start wondering what those off the payroll are. About to reveal. Next come the workers nobody ever sees. Assistants, road managers, people who were in rooms but never on camera. Artists who left Bad Boy with stories they were too afraid to tell until now. That's the real shift. The documentary may end, but the reckoning doesn't. If anything, it opens a door. And the biggest question hanging in the air is simple. Who's next? Because Diddy didn't build this world alone. The white parties weren't private playgrounds. They were industry events. Too many people, too many careers, too many silent agreements. So when federal authorities reportedly raided homes connected to Diddy in 2024, one question echoed everywhere. What else was found? What names were in those files? How many powerful people are sweating right now, wondering if their past is about to become tomorrow's headline? Because this story was never just about Diddy. It's about a system built on untouchable fame and unchecked power. An era where the rules were written by people who believed consequences were for someone else. But now, the rules look different. A mogul in custody, a family pushing denial, an industry holding its breath, footage that rewrites public memory, and the belief that more still exists, recordings that could burn whatever's left of that legacy to the ground. Artists who once praised him now act like they barely knew him. Fans look back at the music they grew up on, wondering how much of it was built on something darker than anyone wanted to admit. This documentary gave answers, but it left bigger questions. What happens when the last loyalist flips? When will the final NDA expire? When the next tape drops? Because make no mistake, people believe more is coming. So tell me, are we watching the fall of one man? Or the unraveling of an entire system built on silence and control? Drop your theories in the comments. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and never ignore the secrets people fight hardest to keep buried. We're just getting started.